Hi, everyone. Um, this is Phil Illy, and I'm here with an autogynephilic individual named Trace, and we're just welcome back to the channel. And we're going to talk today about Trace's experience with autogynephilia, just to get more narratives out there. You know, and Lawrence's book had hundreds, so ideally, it'd be good if there was hundreds of YouTubes as well. The kids these days love YouTubes. Um, so yeah, I guess I'd like to start with asking you, Trace, um, why were you willing to come on my channel today?
Phil, I just I want to thank you first of all. I think you've done a lot of great work on this, and I think it probably the more people you can hear from that have this, I think it just helps. Maybe not to normalize it. It's not normal, but I think it helps to know that other people are out there and dealing with this condition and that there's there's lights at the end of the tunnel depending on which tunnel you go down to be able to get out of. So I know maybe somebody's out there that's really struggling with it, and not that I don't at certain times as well, but I don't know, maybe every little narrative helps. So you had posted a thing on Reddit that you'd like to hear from more people, and I had replied to you that I think it would be good.
Yeah, and thank you for yeah, having the willingness to do so. I do agree that the more voices we get out there, the better, because autogynephilia, it shows up in so many different ways in people's lives, and they have so many different experiences. And any given person watching, they may not, they may see quite a few interviews where they don't relate to it at all, but then maybe they see one where they really do relate to it, and it might help them realize that they are part of this broader category of being autogynephilic. Um, yeah, I was curious to know. Often I start by asking chronologically, like, what are some of the earliest signs of autogynephilia that you experienced? So yeah, I'm just curious. Like during childhood, did you have any sort of behaviors or thoughts that like you later, in hindsight, recognize were autogynephilic?
I did. I think my earliest experience, Phil, was I was shopping with my mother when I was probably, I mean, it's probably my earliest memory ever. I was probably 3 or 4, and I had a cousin that was about the same age as me. That was a female, and it was her birthday was coming, and I remember my mother put me in tried a dress on that she was going to buy for her, and had me put it on and basically model it for for her to see if it was going to fit my cousin, because we were about the same size and the same age. And I often wonder, wow, was that one experience at 3 or 4, was that the experience that set this whole thing off and triggered it, um or would it have happened anyhow? And I don't know. I can't answer that question. I think maybe knowing a little bit about the condition that I know now, um, I think maybe it would have come up some other way anyhow. But anyhow, trying on that dress at that young age, it was I loved it. I loved every bit about it, and it was just a really it was just an experience that stuck in my head. And going forward, and I don't know how long after that incident it was really, but I was still very very little, taking naps throughout the day. And I would go into my mother's room and would steal a slip out of her drawer, and I could pull that all the way up on me and make it kind of look like a sleeveless dress. And I would go get back in the bed and take take a nap in that as opposed to in what I was wearing. And she would find out about that, obviously, when she'd go wake me up for the nap. And I remember her asking at the time, do you want me to buy you some dresses, if you like wearing this? And I remember really wanting to say yes, yes I do, but I was like, I knew it was wrong at that age, or felt wrong, or shameful even. And like I said, I was only 4 or 5 at that age, and probably 4, even. But it just didn't. I couldn't imagine. Oh, geez, what would I was okay doing it around her, but what would my father think of it if my mom went out and bought me dresses? So, um, but
Right, yeah. And it's hard to know, like, whether the shame is, ultimately because it's connected to sexuality or because maybe it wasn't living up to being what you thought a boy was supposed to be.
and I think that's probably what it was. I mean, at that age, there was, obviously zero sexuality involved at all at 4 or 5. It was just a an amazing kind of, for lack of a better word, euphoric kind of feeling that I had, being able to put that on. Um, so, and then going forward from there, it was probably 9, 10 years old. My next memory, I kind of remember going to my grandparents' house, and all the cousins were swimming in the pool, and I had forgotten my bathing suit, and they had extra bathing suits there, but the only bathing suit that they had was a girl's bathing suit. So I had to wear that if I wanted to go swimming, and I was very excited about wearing that, and that was probably my best swimming experience ever, was being able to
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, I think from then on out, I think I tried to forget my bathing suit when I went to my grandparents' house on purpose, and that was still very young, to where there was nothing sexual involved in it at all, at that age. Um, and then I think, as I got older into teenage years, and that sort of thing, is when, is typical, I think, in most AGP's lives, is kind of when the sexual aspect of it picked up. But it was always an envy kind of desire deal when
Yeah.
looking at girls. And I think, Phil, probably most of my erotic experience, self erotic experiences, a lot of them had to do with, which is kind of different from what I've heard a lot of AGPs say. It involved men in my family. It's me being a man, and another man, usually kind of a faceless man, which is typical of AGPs. But or if it was somebody that I knew, it was a kid at school that was, for the lack of a better, kind of a dorkier kid, or something like that. That was maybe a little effeminate, but it it always involved me being a submissive partner when when I would have an erotic experience. Um, and there was some erotic experiences, as well as, kind of fantasizing about being a woman. But at the same time, I don't remember how many of those experience, how much of that happened, because I don't think that I don't think I even thought that it was a thing that you could, you know, be transsexual. So I don't think I correlated that. I think that, my meta attraction, as I know it now, experiences that I had fantasizing about men and me being in the submissive role all kind of came from wanting to be that submissive partner, but not really knowing that you could be a transsexual, if that makes any sense, and it's maybe a little bit different from what I've
Yeah, no, that makes
other.
sense. Like, wanting to play a feminine role even if you didn't know that explicitly that becoming, like, a transsexual was an option.
Yeah, exactly. And later as I did, then that those fantasies have obviously have switched to where very rarely is there a fantasy with a male on male, but I can still, I mean, I could still do that if I absolutely, but it just doesn't happen as frequently anymore. And I think some people listening might go, oh, well, that's just an internalized homophobia thing. But there was really, I I I'm not attracted to men at all in real life. It's the thought of it's a little gross to me even. Maybe a more effeminate guy would probably be better than a more masculine guy, but if it is a masculine guy, it would definitely be a faceless masculine guy in a fantasy. But I've just out growing up, I wasn't there was no desire to go after men at all. So it was a very, I don't know, a confusing time.
Yeah,
And
that is confusing.
I remember because it's, gosh, am I gay? But I really don't have I don't have a something that's dragging me towards even wanting to date a guy. And there really wasn't a whole lot there that was driving me in a direction to date a woman either. But it was, or a girl at that age, but it was I was very attracted to girls with the cliche, I want to be one, but do I want to be with them, or do I want to be one, kind of thing. So it was
Right. Yeah.
it was a confusing time for me in high school and all that growing up, for sure, before I kind of learned all about AGP and what it was, and it's kind of helped me helped me put it together. But I mean, it stayed confusing for probably 20 years. I was very confused about it. um and
Yeah. How did you become unconfused about it?
um I think, I mean, I stayed confused um as I grew up. I continued to stay confused about it. I think jumping forward a little bit, I once the internet came out, and prior to the internet, I remember being in college, and I'd be down in the basement of the science library, flipping through books, and you know looking to see if there was anything similar to my experience. And I think once the internet came around, really the first um, narrative that I found was the typical trans ideology. And that was like, wow, this is what I am. And I liked that ideology, but it didn't click all the way with me. It didn't make sense totally to me. So I kind of did, just listening to your stories and everything, I kind of did something very similar to you with it. Is I researched everything I could research, watched everything I could watch. I just didn't write a dictionary sized book like you did about it. But
Yeah.
no, which is very good, Phil, and thank you for your book. Um, but
Sure.
um, but and then that's kind of when I found out about autogynephilia and what it is. And then that's how it made sense to me. But it wasn't really until the internet came around that I was able to do that. And really, that and I say the internet come around, me also come around to looking at the internet for answers, but it was probably in the 2010s, you know, 2015, maybe even before.
Yeah.
Probably
Was
that.
Anne Lawrence's site up at that time?
I don't know if her site was up at that time, but her book was the first book that I read. Um, so was the first
Yeah,
real that I read on AGP, and that really sealed the deal for me right there. Reading that book, and I was like,
right, you're like, "Oh, this is me."
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had a similar experience after reading her book. Like, I had been reading obsessively about autogynephilia for, like, a month or so before I even got around to reading her book. I still wasn't completely sure, but then after reading her book, I was like, "Yep, that's I'm this whatever this category of person is for sure." Um,
It
it's
is
very thorough.
absolutely it is. Nope, it's good, and it's and it was. I don't know. I It was neat to find out. At the same time, it was a kind of a gosh. I wish the real or the trans narrative that's out there. I wish it was real. I was doing all that research because I was looking for. I wanted to find the answer for why I was like this and have proof that I was like this. I think I wanted to find somebody that did a scientific study that found the pink dingle hopper inside my hypothalamus that made me this way, and then I could
Yeah.
then I could go to everybody, hey, I've got this thing in my hypothalamus that made me this way, so it's perfectly fine for me to be like this, and so kind of, it justified it for me. Um but uh so and I don't know, I mean, there's something that makes us AGP too, but that um I think knowing about AGP makes transition, at least for me it did, and I know for some people it really helps, but for me it kind of made it, hey, this probably isn't something that I need to totally disrupt my whole life over. I think if it was the regular trans narrative that's out there, and there was a pink dingle hopper, um maybe it is, and I justified that, to myself by, as just, hey, you would take a medical treatment if you had a brain tumor or cancer or something that would help it. And I guess you can do the same with AGP, but it just it took the immediate kind of pressure off of wanting to do that. And really, I didn't have a desire to transition at all, um, until the internet came around, and you see other people that are doing it. And really, so it's kind of, in my opinion, it's the cure for transgenderism, kind of caused the problem. um, just seeing other people that, wow, this isn't somebody just on a Jerry Springer show, is where I would see something like that before, growing up. And once the
Yeah.
internet, you could see other people's stories that, hey, I transitioned, and this dysphoria has gone away, and life's so much better. And these were regular people. These were, doctors and bankers and lawyers and, business people, and that stories that you started to see. And that's what all of a sudden made the desire for me to want to transition, was that made it, just made the dysphoria really bad.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how the internet can kind of exacerbate autogynephilic gender issues. Um, I was curious, about, say, like, in your, uh, how has autogynephilia impacted your relationships with women? Like, you've dated women, right?
Yep, I have, and I'm married now, and I have three children, and it's growing up, I was never a pursuer or an initiator. It was, I had a couple one night stands, probably mostly just because I drank more than I should have probably, throughout college and my early 20s. Um, and and those one night stands were, I let's put it this, I never really even and had intercourse. It was always just kind of messing around on those couple one night stands, but never really had intercourse until I met my wife. Um, and that was started out as kind of a long distance relationship, so it was easier for me to to get involved in that and ease my way into a relationship, I think. But any other relationship that I would get in would be, I would be very standoffish because I'd look around at other guys and I didn't really have that. I didn't have that drive that my friends had, and I wasn't a incel, I guess they call them now, or anything like that. Growing up, I was fairly, popular to for some, a little bit, and it was, I wasn't, I didn't sit at home by myself all the time. I had friends and did, but I never really dated. And now that I'm married, and I have been married for, I guess, over 15 years now, it's I don't know if it's the typical relationship, Phil, at all. It's
Yeah. How is it different?
I'm not an initiator, really. I think, sometimes I can just do oral sex on my wife, and that's like enough for me. I like pleasing her and doing that.
Right.
um it's, when we do have sex, it's, I kind of picture her as the penetrator and me as the submissive one. In order for me to climax is kind of how I have to do it. Um, and she's not a male, and when we're having sex, she's kind of a feminine male version of herself, if that makes any sense. That's, able to penetrate. But
Right. Yeah.
and so that's kind of how I'm able to contextualize it in my head when we have sex, that makes me be able to climax. And then there's times that I can have some massive, very masculine feeling energy, and and I'm able to do okay without doing that. But I would say the majority of the time she would need to be the one on top, and me, visualizing that I'm getting penetrated.
Yeah. That sounds pretty classic in terms of how Blanchard described a lot of the heterosexual AGPs that he saw in the clinic, that they'd often have to reverse in their mind who was the penetrator and who was the penetrated,
Hmm.
and with laying on their backs too. And yeah, that that all sounds like pretty normal for at least within the context of
Yeah.
autogynephilia.
Um, and with that being said, I'm very attracted to my wife. I think she's gorgeous. Um, I'm part of kind of why I did this show. I've with you is, I'm very, I'm glad I'm a dad. I like being a father. My kids are great. Um, and you kind of hear people, oh, you got to start early, and what they're doing with kids. And maybe, Phil, if I was born 20 years ago, or 20 years later, and the internet would be out, I might have been one of those kids as a teenager saying, hey, I need to do this. And had I done that, I wouldn't have the family that I have now and the life that I have now, and it would be it would be upsetting. So I guess I kind of wanted to do this to talk to any you know 20-year-old kids that are out there now that are thinking about it, and just, hey, you gotta know it doesn't this thing doesn't get better. If anything, it probably continues to get worse in your head as life goes on, but there's ways to deal with it, and manage it some. And um, so I'm happy with the decisions that I've made to get me where I'm at now and the family that I have.
Yeah, that's part of why I was really keen to have you on is that, I think, like you were saying, a lot of gender questioning males these days, they'll get told that they gotta transition as early as possible, and yet that will preclude them from the sort of completing the life cycle of the typical human of reproducing and having a family and contributing towards the continuation of human civilization, you know?
Exactly.
And yeah, and it's like I think a lot of young people don't really understand the gravity of the opportunity cost of what they're giving up by pursuing the path of transsexualism. And me bringing this up, I'm not trying to say people shouldn't become transsexual. I just think it's good to think more clearly through, once you hit your 30s, you might, when you see all of a sudden your whole friend, like all your friends are starting to like have their own families and everything, that you might feel like you're kind of left out of the loop of the rest of humanity. And it is a big thing to give up, I think.
No, I
Um,
totally agree with you, Phil, and I'm with you. I'm not saying that it's not something that I think it absolutely helps a lot of people. But I don't think at 16 years old you're capable of making those decisions to forego any children later in life and that sort of thing, to sterilize yourself. So it's um with that being said too, have I ever fantasized about what life would be like if I was able to go back and do that? Absolutely I had. And but it's not whatever life it would be. It's not the life that I would want. I'm happy with the life that I have now. And I think I heard Debbie Hayden even say it before, Phil, that by the time that she transitioned, she was about my age when she transitioned. And she had her children, had already had a vasectomy, as I have too. Um, and uh, and maybe and she did it, and she didn't give any of that up. And and with that being said, do I would I consider transition now? I don't think it would be fair. I don't think it would be fair to a wife that I made a deal with 15 years ago when we got married. I don't think it would be fair to continue raising children and put them through that. Um, as much as I would want to transition. But
right, it's sort of like a conflict between like maybe some like fantasies and desires versus like duties and obligations.
exactly, exactly. So that's kind of where I'm at on it, and I do feel take kind of a low dose of hormones just to it. I feel like it helps. I don't know if it's the answer to making it all go away, because it definitely hasn't done that. But I think it takes some of the sexual drive part out of it. Um,
Right, so you can like focus on other things.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, there's not. Yeah, there's not that drive there anymore, the sexual aspect of it. But don't get me wrong, it doesn't make it go away at all. There's still you see an attractive girl walking down the street, and it makes you jealous still. There's just
Yeah.
not the sexual part of it isn't there anymore.
Right. And how did you, like, what's the formulation that you're taking? Is it, like, pills or, like, a cream?
No, it's pills. So I take some spirulactone. I take a low dose of estrogen, and then I also take raloxifene. That's a serum that kind of blocks the breast development.
Right.
Um, so I don't. I think it's probably a very risky thing to do. I don't necessarily recommend it. Um, my blood tests have all come back fine and everything. Being on it, um, I don't think that it's the cure all solution by any means. I think I went on it about a year ago, probably to try to ease the feeling a little bit, and it's helped with that. Is it a lifelong thing that I'm going to keep up? Probably not. I don't know how healthy that would be to keep.
Yeah. You might age out of it too, right? In terms of, like, naturally in your mid-50s or whatever, having a drop in sex drive.
Exactly. So
Um, yeah, have you mentioned at all to your wife any of the inner struggle related to autogynephilia?
I have. She's aware of it. I don't think she understands it necessarily. She knows about cross dressing and that sort of thing, um, and it's even we can, if we go out on a date night or something, we'll go shopping, and even pick out clothes together. Something for me too. So she's good as far as that goes. We can go get our nails done and that sort of thing. And she's very accommodating as far as that goes. The full extent of autogynephilia, we've had a talk about it a time or two, but I don't think she understands it really. I think she probably just understands transgenderism in a broader sense. And I think for most people that don't have autogynephilia, it's a very crazy thing to try to understand and to try to make sense of. And I think that's why there's so much pushback when we try to call it like it's a sexuality and try to call it autosexuality, because that it makes perfect sense to us, but to the outside world it makes it very very hard for them to comprehend what's going on. So I think my wife understands, the broader sense of transgenderism, but I think the conversations we've had about autogynephilia have probably gone over her head.
Yeah. Have you, did you does she know that you're on the trying out those medications?
She does. She doesn't know exactly what I'm trying out. Basically, she just knows that I'm on a low dose of hormones.
Yeah. And it sounds like you picked, a good mix in terms of trying to dampen the sex drive without causing, sort of irreversible, like, breast development. So
Yeah,
it's very logical what you picked.
and it does. The breast development, your breast will start getting it, sore a little bit,
Yeah.
and you kind of taper off the estrogen some, and even for a little while you might need to. It does. It makes you. I definitely lack the energy that I had, before. The get up and go that I would have had before being on it. But like I said, it's made my sex drive go down for sure, which has helped with it.
Yeah. I would bet the spironolactone is probably the biggest culprit for the lowering the sex drive.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah.
I'm finasteride too with for hair loss.
Oh, yeah.
So
Right.
that I think I
Yeah.
noticed taking that really did a um, put a damper in the sex drive too. So
Yeah, I've
um,
noticed that too. I take dutasteride,
yeah,
to try to, like, slow down alopecia, and I do think that over time it has definitely curbed sex drive,
yeah.
which honestly is mostly fine by me. Um,
No, and it's fine by me too. And my wife is not she's not you know she she doesn't have much of a sexual appetite really. So it
that's a
works.
good match then.
No, it is. I think so. It works out well for us, and every once in a while I'll take a Viagra or something. Maybe once a month or every month and a half or something, and we can have sex from there. But
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're dealing with this in a very pragmatic way.
trying to, and like I don't
Yeah.
know the I don't know if it's the right way. Who knows? You might end up finding out that raloxifene causes you to have four noses or something once you hit 55 or something. But who knows, or causes something worse than that. So I don't know. There hadn't been a lot of research on it, but it was worth trying for me, and it did help. For instance, my hair, I had grown it out, Phil, and it was probably longer than yours, and I kind of got on the lower dose, or that the hormone mix, and it kind of made that aspect go away, to where I cut it, and I didn't miss it when I cut it, kind of thing. Um,
Oh,
so
wow. Yeah, that's I feel like the hair is, like, pretty symbolic for AGPs where,
no,
like
for sure it is, and it was
yeah.
I liked having it. I was planning on probably never cutting it after I grew it out, and just I didn't feel the need to have it long anymore once I got on that. Once I lowered my sex drive. So
Yeah. Alright, yeah. Um, sort of how has, do you think any of your, um, kids have noticed that any of, like, say, your feminine displays, like, you mentioned getting your nails done or whatever, do they notice anything?
as they started getting older, I haven't as much anymore. Or if I do, I'll just do clear instead of a color
Classic.
on
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And maybe if my wife and I were going to go away for a weekend or something, I would do a color on there or something. But I haven't. As they've gotten older, I've backed. I've kind of backed out of that somewhat, and I'm trying to think. Really the only thing that I do is I probably wear um, girls' pajamas, but they're not flowery or anything like that. They're just all black. And to tell you the truth, I think the fabric's probably 10 times softer than any guy's pajamas that you could get. So there's nothing really flowery or lacy about them. They're just kind of cut in a feminine style.
Right, and it says women's on the tag probably.
Yeah, probably. I mean, they're from from a women's store, so um, but it's do they notice that or not? I don't know. Um,
Yeah,
Maybe.
it sounds like you've kept it pretty discreet, so I bet they haven't.
Yeah, with the kids, I've tried to. Like I said, I don't. And one of my children is a son that's in very informative kind of years right now. And I don't know, it's worried me to death because I've heard some and seen some links, that it can be genetically linked, this AGP. And I don't want to put a trigger in his head. Maybe he'll get his own trigger, but I don't want to be the one that does it.
Right, and it does seem like the early like, if AGPs sort of express it a lot really young in their life when their identity is still forming, as far as I could tell, it seems to have a stronger hold over them in terms of the wish for transition, whereas if they start later, it seems like sort of that second feminine self is, um it's competing with a pretty solidly built male self, so it's like it doesn't win in the same way, if that
No,
makes sense.
that's absolutely, I've noticed that too, Phil, and it's been yep, I've definitely noticed that too. But at the same time, I don't know if anybody would have known me as younger, other than my mom catching me, that one time wearing her slips, that I had this going through my head constantly at, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nobody would have known that this was constantly going through my head growing up.
W
So,
was it constantly, like, when you were young, or, like,
you
was
know,
it more of, like, a
I
occasional
don't know.
thing?
I don't know if it was constantly. But you're probably right, Phil. I don't think it probably wasn't constantly, but it was definitely there the whole time. I don't think it constantly went through my head until, as I got older and hit puberty. And even then, it was very manageable until the internet came out and I saw stories of people who had transitioned. And then that's when it kind of got overwhelming, and was constant. So back then at 6, 7, 8, 9, it probably wasn't constant at all. It was just, it was there. And it's some of my, really, a lot of my memories have, that when I go back and think of that age, have to do with it.
Right, the memories that, like, really
But my
stick out in your mind.
Yeah, exactly. Those memories stick
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, um, I've definitely noticed that in my own experience that some of the earlier autogynephil like, I don't remember much of my life, I don't have a good autobiographical memory, but to the sort of first experiences with what I now understand to be autogynephilia, they I can tangibly remember them,
Yeah.
and
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
yeah. How was, um forgot what I was gonna ask. Is like, do you have any, sort of advice for the AGPs out there? Like, if they learn that they're autogynephilic and then they're like, "What should I do about this?" Like, do you have any, insight about that you wanna share with them?
I don't know, Phil. I'm still kind of trying to figure it out and navigate it myself some. Um, I would say don't rush into anything, and especially if you're younger, you think you're running out of time. You got to do it. And if you're in a spot where I was, and I was a younger married guy at the time, when I you know when it really hit me hard. And I think I was probably very close to being like, I've got to transition, probably 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And um just don't, I would say, don't rush into anything. It can get bad, and it can, make you go crazy a little bit. But what's the saying? Get out and touch some grass and get away from the computer.
Right, like, get in your body, go outside.
Exactly. Go do something that you enjoy doing. There's other things out there that you can enjoy doing other than wishing you were a girl, because you'll never really be one. So no matter what you do, what surgeries you'll have, you'll never be one. And it won't. I don't know. You see all the detransition stories, and I think most of the male to female stories are all sunshine and rainbows for the first 10 years, and then it seems like after that 10 years, when there's no changes, any more changes happening. There's their whole reason to keep going was for the next surgery or the next thing, or when I'm more passable. And once that quits and dies off, it's just life, I think. And if um and then you see them, they start realizing that, hey, maybe this wasn't the decision that I should have made. um so
Yeah, I've noticed that after about 10 years, it seems that the sort of regret rates seem to
yeah,
go up, that people won't know, like, in the
yeah,
honeymoon period,
absolutely,
uh
because I think there most definitely is a honeymoon period for sure. um so
yeah, and like you said, once they hit the end of all the potential for future feminization, like, at that point, it's just life, like, then you're just living, and there's when there's nothing more in terms of feminization to look forward to, it it could probably be a bit disappointing.
No, and it can, it can and it can't. You see some people that are thrilled, and they're, hey, I don't want to go back to being hairy and muscular and all that. And to tell you the truth, I can kind of do without that too. And and I'm not so hairy and muscular anymore, which I rather like. But I think that the people that you really see regret it are the ones that had the surgery. And it just seems like it's great at first, but then they kind of sit back and go, man, what did I do? I've got no sensation down there anymore. It doesn't work right. It's and there's probably some people that it does, I guess. Some people where everything does work pretty good, but I can't imagine that it would work as good as the original product.
Right, just because of the severing of all the nerves and removing
Yeah,
of all the tissue, like, I I think there's probably a lot of lying that goes on in terms of how good the typical results are for vaginoplasty.
I think you're totally right, and it gets people pulled in. Yeah, it does. YouTube will get them definitely pulled in on, this is what I got to do to make it go away, and to feel better. And I just don't think it I don't think it does, unless you get out and kind of start a life, and start doing things as that new person that make you happy. Just changing your physical body might make you happy for a little bit, but I don't think it's gonna do it for the long haul, unless you find something that's fulfilling, whether it be a spiritual experience, and that sort of thing, which I probably than anything. Or whether it's going out and just finding something that you're truly passionate about, and doing it.
Yeah, it's like, kind of you can change the body more towards what you want, but I think what it also matters what you're gonna do with that body in terms of whether you find it meaningful.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely, Phil.
Um, yeah, Yeah, on this topic, I do notice, like, when I see the prospect of, like, bottom surgery discussed on trans subreddits, it's like almost everyone is a cheerleader for it, and they say how great it is, and then occasionally you'll get someone that says that they've had it and they understand that some people need it, but it really didn't work for them, and then they point out, all the shortcomings and stuff, and then they get, like, downvoted a lot for it, and it's yeah, I do worry about that online culture of sort of cheerleading uncritically for getting bottom surgery, because even in Anne Lawrence's book, I think she said that basically you shouldn't get it unless it's absolutely necessary that
Yeah,
you get it.
yeah, absolutely did. Um, so yeah, I died, and I couldn't agree more, especially after seeing the stories and listening to people, and whereas is 10, 15 years ago, I was all about it, Phil. I was like, man, this is what I've got to do. So
Yeah.
to know what I know now, and just taking things very, very slowly, and I'm grateful for it. And to tell you the truth, um, I think my wife probably had a lot to do with taking things slowly. I kind of hate to wonder, when I finally told told her about what I was dealing with and the whole transgender thing, and if she was fully on board with it, Phil, I think it probably could have been a different story. I would have been like, man, I've got her at my back to support me, and maybe I would have taken things a lot faster. So I'm grateful that she's in my life to have kind of put the brakes on some, to the whole thing. So that's been a real blessing there.
Right. Yeah, 'cause and that kind of is often a thing with male sexuality, right? That the thing that's holding it back from its fullest expression is like women as gatekeepers in terms of them saying no
No,
and just not
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, I think it was, Debbie Hayden again said it, that autogynephilia is basically male sexuality on display, pretty much. Where you have 50-year-old guys wearing short mini skirts and that sort of thing walking around.
Yeah.
That's it's unbridled male sexuality.
It's at least it makes it visible in a way it wouldn't be otherwise, 'cause it's like you can't see a thought, but you can see a mini skirt.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So it's a weird condition for sure to have, but I think it's manageable to some extent. So
Yeah, and sounds like you have a good handle on it. Um, I is that sort of, where do you see yourself going? Like, how do you think it'll progress in the future? Or, like, how do you think you'll manage it in the coming years?
I don't know. Maybe when kids are all grown up and moved away, maybe I'll up hormone doses, possibly, or just like you said, maybe it'll go away as I age and the sex drive goes down some. I can't tell you really, Phil. I'm kind of taking one day at a time with it, and don't get me wrong, it still hits hard sometimes, and I'll still scroll through trans timelines, and
Oh, those are the worst.
no, they're terrible, and it's something,
Yeah.
I'll delete Reddit altogether, and won't do that. But I do enjoy looking through the AGP subreddit. There's a lot of, and I don't contribute very much to it. I mostly just kind of lurk in there, and but I think there's some very intelligent people in there that have a lot of neat insight that has helped a lot. So, um, I think my biggest thing is that I kind of want to get out is that, I didn't choose to have AGP, and if I could if I could hit a button and get rid of it, I probably would, but at the same time, I feel like I would be giving up a piece of myself if I did. I don't necessarily, it's I don't know. Do you feel that way too? Somewhat.
Yeah, that I would, well, at least that I would give it up if it were possible to, like, just if you could take a pill and it would just be deleted from my consciousness, I would. Um, but and I understand that has tints around giving up a part of yourself, but based on my understanding of how the condition works, I would kind of expect if you got rid of the drive that you would just sort of steadily, you would not care about the degree of your femininity anymore, and you would, like, just be a normal heterosexual male, so to speak, at that point.
You would replace the autogynephilia with a normal heterosexual drive, which would make you forget about it altogether. But with that being said, I guess I kind of want to get out there that there's a lot of people out there that use AGP as in the radical feminist category and that sort of thing is and kind of what happened to you at the Gen Spec conference is, everybody's just a dirty pervert, and I don't want this condition. I don't want to be seen as a dirty pervert. I don't feel that I am a that at all. I just feel that I have this condition. I don't know how I got it. I'm trying to manage it the best I can, and granted, there's some AGPs out there that do some crazy off the wall things and post some crazy things. The GameStop person and all of that, and
Yeah.
I think that's not the majority of us. I think the majority of us are regular people, or as regular as we can be, people that are just trying to get by every day, and that's kind of the message that I'd like to get out there.
Yeah, I would agree with you that, yeah, most AGPs are not anything like the worst examples that we see online, and I would also guess that the ones who know that they're autogynephilic are probably even more well-behaved on average, because they can probably more naturally sense sort of where the limits on their behavior should be.
Exactly. No, 100%. If you think you're really a female, and that everybody needs to abide by that, and you can go into any restroom that you want and that sort of thing, it just makes the whole community look bad. And I get it. I get where I was in their space to some extent. I don't think I was ever as bad as a lot of them, but you know as far as thinking, hey, I've got this thing in my head that makes me a woman, so you guys have to be okay with that. It's just at some point they've got to really look in the mirror and realize I'm not a woman. I'm just a guy with this condition. And the more trans people I think you can get to learn about AGP, the better off the trans community would be if it could, I guess if we let's try if we could all just get along, if you could find out why we're fighting about what a true transsexual is, be it a HSTS, and what an AGP is. It's all that they're dealing with the same thing in dysphoria, and they both have sexual links to them, just different sexual links. So it's about sex either way, and so mostly just realizing that it's just a crossed wire that neither of us asked for, the AGPs or the HSTSs, and that it causes the two different pathways that cause the same thing.
Yeah, it would be nice if everyone could just get along, but I don't think that'll happen because people have, they have sort of, like, goals or wishes that are in conflict with each other, but it would be nice if if autogynephilia was, understood more rationally in the trans community, because I think they would do better at self-policing.
No,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely, it would. Just to, I think their big thing is always just the regular trans communities going, hey, just do some research. And when you do look at all that research, it's nothing but a house of cards that easily falls down. My message to them would really be like, hey, you guys do some research and realize what this thing's all about. And all of a sudden your house of cards is laying on the table, and you can kind of build one out of some other theories that make a little more sense.
yeah. No, I would agree. Like, I've looked at a lot of trans research, and the stuff put out by sort of the mainstream people, at least within the trans ideology, so to speak, it's it's often it just completely ignores the Blanchard's 2 types, and it often doesn't even, like, because of that, it doesn't even separate the study participants based on whether they're homosexual or not, and so it's just mixing these 2 different things in as one phenomenon, and some of these studies don't even separate by sex, so it's just mixing in, like, basically 4 different groups into one, and it's really bad research overall.
Absolutely, it is. Yep, absolutely. So,
Um, I I know you mentioned a couple times that, like, sometimes the autogynephilia gets, like, really bad or stressful or distressing, and I'm curious to know, like, sort of tangibly, like, how that manifests in terms of, like, what sort of feelings you have.
um, and I think that it's better now than it has been. Usually a cross dressing episode or something like that can help it. Which I don't feel the desire to do as much as I used to. Um, and Yeah, sometimes it's just if just out and about, or seeing somebody and just being like, man, I wish I could look like that. I wish I could look like her. I wish I could float through the world like she does. And that'll hit hard every once in a while. And I guess it's always there, really, Phil. I think
Yeah.
it's I've heard some people compare it to I think it was Mark Yardhouse said it when he was talking to some people, that they compared it to kind of a old AM radio where it's staticky all the time, listening to the show. You can still listen to life, but it's very staticky. It's not like a clear signal coming through, but you still pick up on everything. So it's always there. People have compared the beach ball thing, which is relatable to where you're holding the beach ball underneath the water. So it's always there, I think. But
Yeah. And, like, sometimes the gender envy gets bad, but, like, usually it's manageable.
exactly, exactly. So
Yeah. I Yeah, thanks for, coming on the channel to talk about some of your experience. It's been really good to hear from someone, especially, um, like, someone that's autogynephilic and has been married with kids and sort of how they deal with that. Because as I've become more interested in sort of whether that's a viable path for more autogynephiles because there's sort of a fertility crisis happening right now in terms of human reproduction, and there with the rate of like population decline that looks like is coming up, it's seems like civilizational collapse is gonna be kind of inevitable unless more people are reproducing, and so that's it seems really important that um, people take seriously their fertility and consider whether they want to reproduce.
No, and it is, and I mean, some people, you know, would say, why did you even get married if you have this condition? And it was I really was attracted to my wife. I really did love her, and I do love her, and I do love our relationship. Well, why didn't I tell her about it when we first got together? And I don't think I knew myself what it was when we first got together. And you hear a lot of stories of the guys that got married and the trans widows and that sort of thing. Um, and it's kind of sad. And I do have sympathy for those ladies that went through that and have gone through that. But I didn't realize what I had at the time, Phil. Like I said, I didn't know I was attracted to my wife. Granted, I had these cross gender fantasies and these weird sexual desires, but I don't think I didn't tell her at the time the same way maybe that any other guy that had a foot fetish maybe would have told his partner on the first couple dates. And it wasn't till later, after we were married longer, that I understood the condition more through some more research. There just wasn't the availability to get that information out there 20 years ago, to where it was as accessible as it is now. So um in some ways, thank goodness for the internet, and in other ways, cursed be the internet. Um, but that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think could an AGP be happy in a different role? Could it be could I be sexually satisfied with a man that you know in a homosexual relationship? Probably I probably could, I think. And I don't know if you've listened to their podcast that was it Aaron and Tally are doing, or not,
I've
right?
listened to them, yeah,
Yeah, they bring up a lot of neat theories in that. And I know they've given you some credit in it as well.
yeah.
But kind of the root of how some homosexuals are kind of come out of meta attraction. So I recommend to anybody that's listening, if they haven't listened to that, to maybe listen to it. It's just some thought provoking things.
Yeah, they have some interesting speculation for
They
sure.
they do, and I haven't listened to all the episodes, but it's thought provoking for sure. Um, but is there several other ways in a relationship that I could be you know satisfied? Probably there is. I think there's probably a multitude of possibilities. Getting together with an AAP woman,
Right, yeah.
other getting together with another M to F person. So I think that there is other possibilities out there. I'm I'm content and happy and glad that I'm in my situation with my wife right now. So I'm glad I'm where I'm at, and I made the decisions that I did back then. But there probably would be other possibilities out there for an HEP.
Yeah. No, I think you put that well. Um, yeah, is there anything you wanna say before I stop recording?
No, I'm good, Phil, and just thank you for all the work that you've done on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing it for my people because, like, like, you shouldn't have had to deal with confusion for all those years. It should have been as simple as, like, when you look through Google and you type in, like, "Why do I wanna be a girl?" or something like that, that it should basically tell you it's autogynephilia, and,
Exactly,
eh
and I think
yeah,
the more that gets done on it, the easier and easier it is to find that out for people if they truly want to open up about it.
right, and hopefully, as we keep adding more and more voices to the collective as we're doing here right now, that, um, it'll be easier for our kind to figure out the truth early in a non-judgmental way that doesn't, like, make them feel icky about themselves, to the extent that's possible because it's related to sexuality, but I think it'd be great if we could make a future where when they look up on the internet why they wanna be a girl, that they get the answer and it doesn't make them feel bad about themselves.
Yep, exactly, exactly. Couldn't.
Um, yeah. Alright, Imma end it here. Thank you so much for coming on, Trace, and sharing your story.
Thanks, Phil.